If you've never heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and I'll explain really quickly. My favorite part, it's free. There's actually creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer if you want. It will actually distribute your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many more, and you can actually make money from it without any minimum numbers of listeners, and it's everything that you need to actually make a podcast in one place. So do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoy this episode with Jacob O'Connor. Jacob is the CEO of Venture Mentality, which was started as a podcast in September of 2019. He interviewed some of the world's top leaders and most successful people and decided to turn Venture Mentality into an official business. So this interview is with a 18-year-old kid that took action and is now an entrepreneur that's seeing success from a merch standpoint as well as a podcast standpoint. So tune in. I hope you enjoy it. Jacob's got a good head on his shoulders, and I know he's going to be doing some big things for the years to come. So check out this episode, and I'll talk to you after. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Mendoza, and I've got a very special guest today. His name is Jacob O'Connor, and I'm going to give him just a second to tell you who he is and what he's all about.
Thank you for the introduction, Jordan. So yeah, as you said, my name is Jacob. I'm a recent senior in high school, just graduated actually yesterday. And I, for the last 8 months, have been running a podcast called Venture Mentality. It's been doing very well. I've been fortunate enough to have on some big guests, such as people featured on Sports Illustrated, TV actors, billionaires. I had on the founder of Netflix recently. So just been very fortunate to have some really cool guests come on and to be able to share their story with my audience.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, first off, congratulations on graduating. You know, I know that's a big milestone, right? That's kind of the first milestone, right, as you go into adulthood. So, congrats on that, first of all. And really want to find out about you. So, you know, where were you born and raised? And, you know, how were you as a kid? You know, was there always, you know, this interest in journalism or broadcasting or media or anything like that? So let's give the audience. So how were you, you know, probably 17 right now, almost going to be 18, but how were you when you were younger? Were you more focused on academics? Were you into sports? What were some things that you think have really brought you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I've always done very well in school, but the place where I was always able to kind of excel and to see like a direct correlation between the amount of work that I put in and the output and the outcome that I received was basketball. Basketball for me was everything up until about this last year whenever I got into podcasting and this whole other world. But it was easy for me to fall in love with basketball just because one, I could play by myself, so I could practice all the time with myself being the youngest of four siblings. Whenever they all left for college and everything like that, and I was just at home by myself, it was easy to just grab basketball and just play. And one of the things that I always liked about basketball was that you may not be the best shooter, you may not be the best dribbler, but it's so much dependent upon your effort. So if you could try really hard and if you could put a lot of work in physically, then your defense and your rebounding ability would be that much better than everyone else's, regardless of how rough of a night you might have shooting or how much you might struggle with handles one night. So rebounding and defense is really where I excelled just because I've always been able to try very hard.
That's awesome. Yeah, basketball, it's my favorite game too. I play a lot of basketball. You can see behind me, I've got a bunch of action figures, and so I'm big into it, man. And I feel you. So I have six brothers. So, you know, as you can imagine, summer's got real competitive, right? Whether, you know,
Definitely.
doesn't matter where you fall in line, because when you have siblings, it's always competitive. It's always a competition. So do you think having those older siblings really helped elevate your game?
Well, you see, so I've got one brother and he's 8 years older than me. So he was more of a role model for me than like a competitive playing against each other just because the age difference. But me being able to watch him and see like kind of following in his footsteps, that's really what did it for me.
Okay. Yeah, and that's awesome too to have a mentor, right? Like a relative, but someone that you can look up to and say, "Wow, like I have aspirations to, want to
Hmm.
excel like they did." Okay. So that's super
Definitely.
cool. So did you play all through, but and I'm sure with I don't know if COVID impacted everything because the way the seasons are, but so did you play all 4 years?
Yeah, I did. I've been playing since I was like 6, and I just finished up my senior season this year, so it's been it's been awesome.
Okay. And so were there thoughts, and maybe there still are, I don't know, you can share with the audience, but what did that next level look like? And let's just say this, prior to starting your show, what did that next level look like as far as basketball is concerned?
If you would ask me like freshman or sophomore year, I would have very confidently told you that I was going to play. I was either going to play at a D2 school or sit the bench at a D1 school. But once things kind of started changing, which there was an event my junior year that really kind of changed the trajectory of how I looked at basketball versus the things I'm doing now. And so if you would have asked me prior to that, I would have said basketball in college. But then after that, I would have said no way, just because I know that my passion kind of changed and that the amount of time I needed to do all of this would have been too great to balance that with basketball again.
Okay. So what was that pivotal moment? And I love this because every guest that I have on, no matter how old or how young they are, there's always a pivotal moment. There's always
Mm,
something that shifts our perspective in such a way that
mm,
really takes us down a path that we never even thought, was
mm.
possible. So
Yeah.
what was it for you?
Yeah, so it was nothing super dramatic for me. That's actually one of the things that I really like, because I think a lot of people they almost try and like find something in their life that they need to like push up against to shift their trajectory. But for me, it was just it was kind of natural. So my junior year of high school, I was selected to be a part of an entrepreneurial group at my school. So basically, what that means is that for the first 2 hours of each school day, we would have the opportunity to leave school, travel throughout the community, see the local businesses, hear from guest speakers, and we were eventually challenged to start our own business. So I did this my junior year, and it really just started to kind of shift my paradigm as to what I thought was possible and the different things that could be accomplished, online or with a brick and mortar store. Just it really opened my eyes to the business world.
And so what about that opened your eyes? Because I think it's important to give people context. Was it the fact that you could see yourself running a sustainable business? Was it maybe a leadership speaker that you heard and their story resonated with you? So what was it that said, you know what, like I can see myself doing this?
Yeah, so there were definitely some great speakers and some great like events and stuff that we attended. But what really did it for me was whenever we were challenged to create our own product or start our own service, it was kind of like in the back of my head. I'd always had it kind of pictured as like, well, I can do something kind of small, like a little lemonade shop or something like that, but nothing bigger than that. You have to have money and you have to be older and you have to have all these connections and stuff. But that wasn't the case. I ended up creating a product for truck drivers. It was a seat cushion that helps absorb shock to help with their back posture and everything that goes on with that. Because that's a big problem for truck drivers, the shock vibrations. And so through that process, I actually worked with a local company that makes medical cushions for wheelchairs. And while I was working with them, they were really impressed, I guess, with my creativity and I guess the knowledge that I had in that field. And they ended up offering me a position, an internship for the summer on their product development team. So going into my senior year, I'd been working on their product development team for like the last 4 or 5 months, which was super cool. And it was really an experience that was quite crazy to have. I kind of looked at that and I said, like, well, what other kid do I really know that's been able to do this? And that was slowly like kind of the shift that was like, okay, I made that happen by creating this product and taking action. And then all of a sudden here I am making money working for this company with a bunch of like 40-year-old dudes. And I'm sitting there at 17 in their office, like anything was really possible at that point. And so it was from that point on that I started just picturing stuff and going a little bit bigger.
And you said a key word there, my friend, and that's action, right? Like you have to take action. There's plenty of other 17-year-olds that, yeah, you're right. They're like, what are we gonna do this weekend? Where are we gonna go hoop, right? Like and you're saying, you know what? Like I'm making this time commitment. Like I put myself in a position to literally learn, right? Learn from people and learn from their mistakes and really kind of pave the way for this new journey for you. So after this internship, what was your next step?
Yeah, so actually, it was during the internship that I got the idea for the podcast because I had a little bit of downtime. I was the young kid. I was kind of doing the leftover jobs for them. And so I was always listening to music. And once I ran out of music, I turned to podcasts. And it was at that point that I heard some podcasts with Casey Adams and Joel Brown. And they were interviewing other people that were super successful. And I found it absolutely fascinating. And I was like, well, why can't I do that? Like these guys are a little bit older than me. Like what is different between them? And it kind of opened up a question in my head that I really attribute a lot of stuff to that I've been able to accomplish. And that is what separates the high performers from the average Joes. And so with that idea in the back of my head, with that question, I kind of said, okay, I'm going to start interviewing people and searching for this answer. I'm going to start talking to the most successful people that I know, the most successful people that I can find, and basically asking them like, hey, what did it for you? And then sharing that out with everyone else.
Yeah, and I love that take because for one, I mean, you get to be this student all the time, right? And not only a student that's learning from people, but you're learning from people that are the best at what they do, right? And when you can really get that magical unlock of what it was that got them to where they are, I mean, like what a beautiful thing to get. Because those are things that, and that's what I really enjoy about the podcast space is, we can all learn and we can educate people through our content and we can learn from others. And it's just this amazing community of people that are always constantly looking to grow and looking to learn.
Definitely. And one of the cool things with that was that so Casey and Joel were two of my role models to that point. And they're very well respected and very well known in the podcasting business community. And so I had made it my goal to have them both on my show. And looking at it, like it wouldn't have made sense that I'd be able to get them on, especially with the little experience that I had. But within like 3 months of me making that goal, I'd had both them on my show. And it was at that point, it was also just like, if I was able to do that and do it that quickly, then sky's the limit.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So, I'm learning a few things about you, right? So for one, you like to take action, right? And you're constantly learning and trying to become, a better version of you, and I think your show definitely creates a place for that to happen, which is great. So, what were those, handful of goals? I know to get your two role models on, I'm sure that was a big goal that you had. So what were some other goals that you set that you hit? And then also, I would love to find out which ones did you set and you haven't accomplished yet that are still on
Mm.
that list.
Yeah, so really, there's a lot of micro goals that I've hit. The big picture ones haven't really been touched yet as much, but like as far as like knowing that I'm on track for the big ones, I've been hitting my micro ones pretty well. So, for example, Casey Brown, Joel Adams, two of the people I wanted to get on the show, I did it. I wanted myself to make it to 100 interviews, 100 episodes. I just crossed that milestone. I was very happy with that. About 3 months ago, I made it a goal that I wanted to get 100 interviews and 100 reviews for my podcast in about 3 months. I hit that mark also. Um, and then I made it a goal in January that I wanted to start traveling to speak. And actually, the same day that I wrote that goal down, I got a call asking me to come out to New York to speak at an event, which was absolutely remarkable. Unfortunately, the event was canceled due to COVID, but just the fact that I'd received that call, it was just crazy. Like how an idea in your head, as soon as you like spoke it out, all of a sudden it just happened. So those are some of the goals that I've hit, but the ones that I haven't hit are really the ones that keep kind of driving me. So, for example, making it into the top 50, the top 10 on the business podcast list. Um, have another 100 interviews done is something that I'm really trying to push forward. Getting bigger guests like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, those kind of people on my show. I know I've been fortunate to have people like Mark Randolph, founder of Netflix, Trevor Moawad, business partners with Russell Wilson, and all these other great professionals. But there's really another tier and level that I keep striving to hit too.
That's good. Yeah, yeah. It's always good to continuously push yourself. So I really want to find out. So what has the family thought about all this? What are your parents thought? I'm sure initially when you talked about going into it, there's always like, okay, well that sounds like fun. Like go ahead and do that. But being able to watch you grow, right, as a human, and then also see the podcast take off. So what's that been like for from your parents' perspective and people that are in your small circle?
Yeah, so from past experience, I had a habit of like getting super giddy and telling everyone about all these great ideas I was going to do before actually doing it, or then I would do it and just completely fail. So with this one, I kind of treated it a little bit differently. I didn't tell anyone for like the first 3 or 4 months, and after that point, whenever things started to shift and I started to see some progress and stuff, that's when I started talking about it and sharing it with people, and everyone's been super proud, and they've given me some great feedback. I've also gotten some criticism, but that's more valuable than most of the advice or most of the compliments that I get, just because of the fact that um, a lot of the people that I talk to, they're the ones that know what they're doing. And so when they give me something like that, then it's really important for me to look at it and to keep growing. But I've had a lot of support around me.
Awesome. And so what has been your favorite part? Let's take the interviews aside, right? Because I mean, obviously you've got a passion for learning and really having these conversations. So
Mm.
interviews aside, what's the other favorite part about podcasting, right? Because for the listeners that don't have your own show, there's a lot of work that goes in, right? You got to record, you got to edit, you got to market, you've got to continue to elevate your game. So what part of the process is your favorite overall? And maybe is there one that you didn't think you'd enjoy that now you're like, oh, actually I kind of enjoy doing this?
It really shifts. Like you kind of go through ups and downs with it, but I say right now one of my favorite parts of the process is like looking at someone that like doing the initial research of who I want to have on the show. So like looking out and seeing like, okay, this guy's a professional baseball player. He's won 3 MVPs. He played for this team, stuff like that, and thinking to myself like, how cool would it be if I could get him on the show? Or like looking at an actor who's in a bunch of movies and thinking like, what if I got him on the show? It just really that for me, like almost like the daydreaming portion of it has been super enjoyable. And so one of my favorite things to do is to kind of daydream, to let it come into fruition in my head, and then to just attack every possible avenue of contacting these people and just keep trying to make it happen. I don't expect them to see the messages or to answer. That makes it so much better when they do though. And so I think having that mindset is really what's been able to help keep me going.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's one of the things with life, with business, with sales is you can't be afraid of hearing the word no. Because like you said, I mean, people get blasted on DMs all the time, and who knows, it might be that, 101 that gets them, right? That they, for whatever reason, the serendipity of the moment, they just happened to, check out their notification and all of a sudden it was you, right? So I love that. Yeah, it's the process is definitely it's a fun part.
And
So
and that's
yeah, go ahead.
literally actually been like kind of the story for me, like the good fortune that I've had. Like I've had people on the show that you don't see on any other podcasts, and I asked them like, why did you say yes? And they're like, I never check my DMs. I never answer my DMs. But when I saw yours, there was just something about it that I just felt like I needed to do it. And it's not something that I fully understand, but it's really just like knowing that like take action, stuff will come back around to you.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And you seem like the type of person like you really want to get their know their story. And then you also want to help other spread their stories to others, right? And that's a form of reciprocity, my friend. That is I want to add value to you. Like they're obviously adding value to you, right? You're getting people that are high caliber actors, celebrities, authors, speakers. So it's a value trade, right? Because it's really is great for you to have them on your show, but it's also great for them to be on your show because it can reach an audience that maybe they wouldn't have had before, and it can impact people at a scale that maybe that wouldn't have been possible for if they would have said no, right? So I think it's a dual value trade.
Definitely.
So what do you think? I've heard a little bit about your micro goals and some of the goals that you have on there, but what are some other ways that you can elevate this? Because I know you're looking at this. This is a business, right? I've got the podcast. I'm, going to be doing speaking engagements. So, what are some other things that you would like to right now on this show speak into fruition? There that are some things that you want to go after.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to preface this with saying that, like, I remember like 2 years ago thinking about going to that entrepreneurial program. And I was literally sitting on my couch, sitting in my bedroom, like, I have nothing to do right now. All I want is this brilliant idea and something to pursue. I want to have hours and hours of work that will I can put into it and that will grow. And then now I'm sitting here and it's like I could probably spend 6 or 7 hours on this a day, and I usually do, and still have plenty of work to do the next day. So when you talk about like what is it that I want to start coming into fruition and stuff like that, it's crazy because a lot of the stuff that initially I'd want to come to fruition is happening right now. So for example, filing for an LLC, getting Venture Mentality trademarked. And then I had people reach out to me about apparel and stuff like that. So getting all of that negotiated, finding good price points, actually turning this into somewhat of a legitimate business. It's much different than just the podcasting side. There's a whole lot of different aspects that you need to consider. And so you can definitely expect to see merchandise coming out. Just finished my first round of hat pre-orders. They went very well. Having t-shirts come out pretty soon here. And yeah, I think that that's for right now, that's going to be the focus. It's just kind of spreading the word through the apparel.
Okay, and that's awesome. And so, can you give the audience a little context? Again, there might be people that are listening that they're thinking about starting a show. So, can you give them just a sense of how much time you're spending on social, right? So, there's plenty of sites. You have LinkedIn, you've got Facebook, Instagram, you got Twitter, you got TikTok. So, where are you spending time? And then when you're spending time there, I'm sure you've got a purpose, right? Like there's an intention. Whether it's I need to send out 100 cold DMs today, or I want to go ahead and post a piece of content to help elevate my personal brand. So can you give the audience a little context into that?
Yeah, so the two places that I spend the most time, actually three places. The first one is email, the second one is LinkedIn, the third one is Instagram. So what I'll do is if I want to ask someone on the show, search their name, first send them a DM. Usually in their page, they have an email that you can send them an email address. So I send them an email, and then I try and find them on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, so one of the things that's been super helpful for me is that before this, I was never on social media. So I knew that whenever I started the podcast, I was going to have to be on Instagram and stuff like that. And honestly, I kind of dreaded it just because going from that and then having to jump into this. But one of the things I've done that's been super helpful is I don't follow anyone that like I'm friends with, anyone that I actually know. The only people I follow are the guests I'm trying to get on the show. So that way, whenever I go into my Instagram, whenever I go into my DMs, there's nothing, no one sending me funny cat videos or TikToks or anything like that. It's only the people that are doing business with me. So it's completely professional. That's helped to keep me focused as I continue to go forward. So yeah, I spend the most time on Instagram definitely, and then probably email and then LinkedIn.
Okay. And so what percentage would you say is you creating content versus outreach, right? Like cold messaging or making those introductions, like you said, finding their email, researching them and trying to connect.
Probably about 80-20. So I'm spending probably about 80% of my time reaching out, finding contact information, trying to find a way in there. And then about 20% making content just because I outsource for some of my content, unless the picture is taken by me or a friend or something. All the videos that you see on my page and stuff, I outsource for those.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I think those are definitely some good tips for folks that are thinking about it, right? Because you're especially if there's people that you want, they're not just going to all start running to you immediately, right? Like you've
No.
got to, and I think the thing that I'm noticing, and I think you have as well, is when you first launch, when you first start out, it is a lot of you trying to find people, but then all of a sudden this paradigm shift happens, and you're getting messages from people, and they're like, hey, how can I be on your show? Right? Isn't it? So when was the first time that happened for you? And what was that feeling like? Just to share that with the audience.
Yeah, so I had someone reach out to be on my show probably like maybe 3 months after I started it. So a little bit into the journey, but honestly, it always kind of throws me off when people reach out to me just because the people that I always try and reach are like so high up that I know that they don't usually have time to come and find me. And so, I'm always super grateful when people reach out to me, but at the same time, I myself have a vetting process and I hold my guests to a very high standard.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's definitely nice when you start having folks just come out of the woodworks, right? Like, and you're like, where did you find me? Like, how did you
Yeah,
find out about me?
exactly.
Which link did you see and things like that? So,
Hmm.
so what are your thoughts on the show overall, the production overall, is that something that you considered before releasing that first episode, right? Because again, there's a lot that goes into it. You've got to record it, then you've got to do the edit process. Do you outsource most of it, or do you like that part of the process yourself?
Um, I'm not I don't like it. I'm not really a huge fan of it, but I don't outsource it. I take a lot of pride in having done it myself. And I think it's a really valuable skill to have. And then at the same time, obviously I'm still trying to grow everything. So the money, I'm not really in a place to outsource it because, my philosophy is if I can do it myself and I can do it just as good or better than someone else, I'm probably more efficiently, quite honest. I'll just go ahead and do it myself. And so, yeah, the process behind it is not, when you start a podcast, you don't really understand what actually goes into it. You just say, oh, I've got an interview. Okay, well, wait a second. How am I going to take this video? How am I going to get that into an RSS feed, upload it to the whatever, like where do I even upload this to? How do I get it on Apple and Spotify? So there's a lot more technical side that actually goes into it, but I'm quite proud of myself for having stuck with it and realizing and figuring out how it works and then going on to helping my other friends and people start podcasts.
That's it. And so, with that experience, like now you know how to start a show from scratch. So is
Mm-hmm.
that something that you've thought about adding to your wheelhouse, right? You got the LLC, you rocking and rolling, you got some merch, right? You got some merch coming on. Have you thought about adding that to part of the business? Let me now, like, let me teach you, like, or create a course that teaches somebody how to launch their own show, right? I mean, because there's plenty of people out there that would love to know how to do it.
Yeah, so I have two thoughts with that. Whenever I hear course, unless it's free, it always kind of bothers me just because I know that all the information you need is out there for free. I actually had a listener message me yesterday and say, "Hey, I wanted to learn how to do this one thing with my podcast. Like, do you recommend me buying a course on it?" And I told him, "No, don't buy a course. You could find anything out there that you need for free." And I know that because that's what I've done. I haven't paid for any course or anything like that. So you can find it. It's all out there on YouTube. It's all out there on Google. Um, and then the second part, um, could you repeat the question? Actually, I forgot the second part.
That's okay. Yeah. So just thinking about, the business side, you've started the LLC, you've got merch
Yes,
going.
yes.
You ever thought about adding something like that? And again,
Mm-hmm.
could be free, right? Could be a
Mm-hmm.
free, like this is where you start. This is how I'm going to literally teach you everything that I taught myself how to do. And here's the PDF or here's a power, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
To get that knowledge out there.
So I'm definitely considering making a PDF or some sort of YouTube video or something this summer maybe. But what I've actually done is taken my skill and kind of made it in a strategic sense that I look at some of my podcast guests and I look at their businesses and I think to myself, well, what could a podcast do for their business? And so I've actually been in a position where I've reached out to a couple of my guests and said, hey, I'll help you start a podcast. I'll edit the shows. I'll even co-host it with you. And so what I've done with that is it's really smart in the sense that by attaching myself to their names, these are much more credible people than myself. They have much larger followings, that they have the capability to connect me with bigger guests and stuff like that. So I essentially have connected myself to a couple different podcasts, and it helps to all come back and funnel into the venture mentality by growing it because of the fact that I am now hosting a couple podcasts.
That's good. Yeah, no, and I like that play because again, it's a way that you can add value first, right? I'm a big believer in that, and with my consulting business, that's the way that I operate. Is I always want to work with my clients to show them I know what to do, right? Because what happens then is they say, "Wow, you've added this value to me. Here's how I can partner with you. Here's how I can add value to you." So I really accommodate that approach because it is it's a dual value add. Like you're adding value to them, they're adding value to you. Your show is growing, your brand is growing, and like you said, you're attached to these people whose today, right? And this is just today, whose brands are bigger. So it's literally elevating your brand alongside them.
Definitely.
So what are some things that you enjoy doing outside of podcasting? Because this takes up a lot of your time. So I'd love just to give the audience. So what are some other things that besides basketball, because everyone knows that you love to hoop, like what are some other things that you like to invest your time in?
Honestly, like I don't want this to sound cheesy, but like everything that I'm doing with this, like whether it's trying to figure out a name or work on a project, like business in this field is really what I enjoy and fascinates me. Like if I have free time, I'm gonna come find people to connect with. I'm going to find different things to start to build, to grow, different avenues. It's super fascinating to me. But besides that, I always enjoy sitting down to watch a good movie, kind of getting lost in the beautiful work that the producers do to put it together. And then, I like hanging out with my friends and just having a good time, just talking with them. I love talking about the future. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to kind of ask people like, well, where do you want to go? And just go really deep into that. You can always find a deeper conversation when you're talking about the future.
Love that, man. Well, I want to find out, I know you just finished up yesterday, right? Just graduated yesterday. So how has this time been, and, with COVID happening and it impacting, the physical graduation and, all the ways to create memories with family and friends? Like, how have you dealt with that whole process? Because, I'm sure as, I know some kids that are seniors that have had to go through this, and it's been a little bit of an adjustment. So what have you been doing to, keep that mindset right? I know probably focusing on your ventures has been helpful for sure. But how has that been kind of impacting you a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It's been kind of a blessing in disguise, like as unfortunate as it is, I'm not ignorant enough to forget a time where earlier this year I was sitting there thinking, I just need a week off. I just need a week where I can sit down and work on all of this and get caught up. And I fortunately had 3 months of that. However, you'll notice that my senior year compared to the rest of my years, all of my business went way up, but all of my school went down a little bit, nowhere drastic, but there was definitely a little bit of an indirect correlation between the two. Um, but I've been, it hasn't hit me too hard just because of the fact that I have been able to keep myself so busy. If I didn't have a podcast going, if I wasn't trying to grow all this, I probably would have gone crazy, honestly. Like, I probably would have been like all my other classmates watching Netflix and TikTok all day. Like that, I'm just so grateful that I had this to kind of fall back on and to really dive deep into.
Yeah, and would you say that having the show and interviewing the people that you interview has helped keep that optimism and that mindset up, right? Because like you're talking to some high performers that are also in COVID. So, I always say this, and it's something that I heard from one of my guests not too long ago, but success leaves clues. Right. If you're successful and you're not scrambling and during a pandemic, you know something that I need to know. Right. So has having these guests on and having the show during this time, would you say that it's attributed to that level of confidence and not binging like, like some of your friends are doing, and keeping the momentum going?
Oh, definitely. This has been fantastic for that. And just because the fact that I know that the guests themselves, they're not able to go into their offices and stuff like that, so they have more free time. Honestly, I don't know if the Netflix interview would have happened if COVID wasn't going on, just because the fact he had more time to sit down with me. But getting to talk to these people on a daily basis definitely helps just prime your mindset. And one of the things that's really hard to do and I need to do more of is spend more time reflecting, just because of the fact that, I have been able to accomplish a decent amount and talk with some really remarkable people, but sometimes I get so caught up in like just pushing forward that I forget to go back and look at where I've come from.
Yeah, man. And to me, that's powerful content, right? Like you want to post some great content on Instagram, talk about like the last week and the people you've had on and what you right and what you've learned, and like you remember the first interview versus that last one. Like that might be some really great content for you, to not just reflect, but to also share that with the rest of the world. Because to me, the best content is authentic, right? It's just coming and you sharing your thoughts about how you're feeling. So that might be it might be a good Instagram stories series for you,
Definitely think I might have to do that. That's a great idea, Jordan.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, listen, it's been great hearing about your journey and your story, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more from Jacob here in the future. So let's just go ahead and give the audience, there's going to be people that listen to this and say, you know what, like that guy was cool. He's a young kid, but he's years ahead of his time with knowledge and information from meeting with some of the world's highest performers. And I think I want to reach out to him and find out how he started his show, or maybe connect with him on Instagram. So where are some great places for people to connect with Jacob?
Yeah, so just find me at the Jacob OC. So that's TheJacoboc. And then from there, everything else is linked to it. So you can find it. The podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. Just search Venture Mentality.
Awesome, my friend. Well, I'll make sure all of that is down in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time today. And thanks for coming on the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast.
You're welcome, Jordan. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to that episode with Jacob O'Connor. I hope you're inspired by his story. I know I was, thinking about what I was doing at 18 years old. It definitely wasn't starting a business. So, I can't wait to continue to follow his journey. I know he's going to see some success along the way. Make sure you connect with Jacob. His info will be down in the show notes. Reach out to him on social or check out his website and grab some of the VM merch. And as always, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the show. We appreciate all of our listeners, and hopefully each episode adds value to you in some way. Also, please go ahead and go over to iTunes, give us 5 stars, give us a review. That will definitely help us move up the Apple ranks so that we can reach and impact as many people as possible. Until next time, I hope you have an amazing day.